You can design with words. Marketeers do it all the time. You know, when you look at a marketeer's brand positioning document, it's full of bloody words, and they're all the same words. Our brand is human. You know, our brand is innovative. Our brand is influential. Our brand is trustworthy. 80% of brands use the same words to describe themselves. But when designers start using brands, it's very interesting. This is a design strategy job for Airbus, which turned out, which actually I stole. So Picasso said, great artist, was it okay artists borrow, but great artists steal? I love this. This is from the Chanel Museum, and I love the way of its brutal pragmatism and simplicity, and everybody gets it. You can deconstruct Chanelness. You can identify and define its parts, so, where the whole gestalt gives you the kind of je ne sais quoi, the beauty of it. So I kind of borrowed that visual there, and I did the same for Airbus. I helped them codify their internal design process. And what I discovered here, that design was more about diplomacy than it was about design, because it was about unifying different components of the business that don't normally speak. And there's an element of this at Boeing as well. The design process is owned by different people at different times, and these people promote and defend their own interests. There are people that are paid to save weight on the flight. There are people that are paid to express brand on the flight. There are people who are paid to ensure that the program is retrofitability. And these are often at odds. They're contradictory ambitions. And it's the design manager's job to empathize with all of those different voices and unify them around some kind of auditable, coherent strategy. I tried to do this for Boeing, and I failed. I didn't get there. It was just, the challenges were too big for me, but I did it for Airbus. But I did do some really lovely stuff for Boeing. I said to them, do you realize you're a world-class brand? Whether you like it or not, you are a world-class company, but sometimes you don't express yourself with the confidence that you've earned. You've earned the right to be proud of your product. You've earned the right to have a distinctive point of view of your product. So we just did some test shoots for them, and some quite interesting results came up. Advertising, I've done Z4 interior back at BMW, Rolls-Royce. This was interesting. This was how far can you stretch the Rolls-Royce before you lose the Rolls-Royce-ness. Very interesting study. I can't talk about that in detail. Pop-up stores, they're fun. This was for Rembrandt toothpaste back in New York, and it's a kind of micro brand environment that pops up, and these things work really well when they're a part of a kind of tactical marketing strategy. So Rembrandt were very shrewd. They used this space to train people. They used this space to have VIP events. They had a whole kind of viral thing around it, and the whole thing kind of disassembled and popped up in Chicago. And bringing you right up to speed, here's some stuff that I've been doing recently. So this was the job that our Japanese client approached us for, to create a signature melody for the cabin. So they wanted a sound that was ownable and sympathetic to their whole kind of company positioning, but would act as like a kind of takeoff sound. So hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sola Sidere. So this would be kind of midway through the flight. And then when you're coming into land. I mean, it's not Mozart, right? But you know what? It's but good for them. They've got 7 aircraft, and they're thinking big. They're benchmarking themselves against Intel. They're owning a sonic channel. They're sonically branding themselves. They loved it so much, they then commissioned the composer to do a much longer piece. So they're using this on their website now and stuff. It's really good. Delightful. We love it, right? It's a delightful project. Something a bit more serious. This is a brand identity and industrial design program we're working on it right now. It's very rare that you have the opportunity to craft a brand from the inside out. So, we're writing the brand's vision, mission, values, and goals. It's visual language. It's advertising. It's three-dimensional expression. It's called Ping. It's an intelligent way to track lost baggage. Every single day, 80,000 bags go missing. Every day, 80,000 bags go missing. And that's cost the airlines millions of service recovery. So we've got some shares in this, and we bloody hope this could be our pension scheme. Hilton Worldwide, can't talk about it, but we love them. And JetBlue, God, I love JetBlue. So that's what I do. What's going on? Sarah's seen this slide like a million times. The fundamentals of branding have remained the same, but the nuances have changed. So, back in the day, I would simply identify, what my stock is and what your stock is. That's the basic notion of branding. And then in the 20s and 30s and 40s, brands became to own sectors. When you think of, my mum used to say, well, I'm going to hoover the carpet, which was a brand name for a vacuum cleaner, of course. You can probably think of your own analogies there as well. During the 80s, lifestyle branding, how we felt about the product was more important than what the product actually did. We can thank Nike for that, and Starbucks, and all the rest of them. So brands became forms of self-expression, didn't they? So if you had the right brand, you were a somebody. And then in the 90s, of course, the game changed with the new dimension. Brand experience was born. And now, of course, we've seen brands move into becoming a platform, really. Brands allow people to exchange ideas. And, this is the kind of constellation that we're all working with today. And, the key learning here is that brands used to be about a monologue. You would watch an ad from Levi, or you would read a piece of packaging from Nike, and it would be a one-way channel. Now, of course, there's a two-way relationship. So brands are much more about a dialogue now, and no longer a monologue. So what it means for brand owners is that you're now part of the conversation. You used to own the conversation. Brands used to own the conversation, but now they're just part of the conversation. So what that means is that brands need to have a point of view to be an intelligent part of the conversation. I mean, no one wants to talk to someone who's boring, do they? You need to have something to say. You need to have something interesting, meaningful, relevant. So that's why brands are all struggling now to have some kind of meaningful point of view. You're much more interested in why people do what they do, not what they do. If you meet someone at a party, what do you do? Oh, I work in IT. That's good. Why do you do that? And that's the same for brands. Brands are much more interesting when they explain to the world why they do, not what they do. JetBlue's an airline, we know that, but why are they an airline? What do you stand for? What gives you the right to be an airline? You get much more interesting replies in. I don't have time to go through this in detail, but I did the same thing. I tried to map the way that technology has evolved over the same time period. And, there's kind of key measurable stages here: mechanization, the Industrial Revolution. So that was the appliance of science, machinery coming in to take the jobs of, what craftsmen would normally do. And then we scaled that during the 70s and 80s, automation, efficiency, driving out the costs, driving down the price point. The digital revolution is very much our era, isn't it? Everything's out there. There's so much information out there now. We get intimidated by how much is out there. And I think we're starting to scratch on the surface now of harmonization. So how can we create a harmonic spiritual symbiosis between how we consume and how the world functions? You can call that sustainability or spiritualism, whatever you want to call it. But what that means is there's a huge blur. Content, channel, brand, design, it's all one bloody thing now, isn't it? It's owning a relationship between an end user and an enterprise, basically. There's a blur of price, performance, expectation. Time is now being redefined. A lot of us work from home. A lot of us work remotely. So that redefines when the working day starts, when the working day stops, what's personal, what's professional. And then design. I'm not qualified at all to talk to design history, nor anything else in this presentation. But what was interesting was that, form followed function, and then form followed expression, and then form followed process. The Bauhaus came and gave us some principles that, by and large, you're still trained by. A lot of foundation art and design courses and basic design programs are still founded upon some of the early work of the Bauhaus. And then commercialization got involved, didn't it? Making money got involved, and that had a profound influence on the objects around us. And now I think we're in a kind of new era of a different criteria, where a lot of us are some of us are concerned about the wider implications of our decisions. So how long is this product going to be around for? What's its afterlife? What do we do with it when it stops working? So system design, thinking about our contributions in a wider system of its implications, and accountability to our kids. We've got to be careful. I mean, we've inherited so much crap we've inherited. Are we truly here to create more products? Do you think so? Or are we here to encourage encounters and knowledge and learning and love, and relationships? I mean, design can do that, can't it? So if you agree with me, if you follow my journey, we might be in this is where I would start some of your explorations. We're in the business of dialogue. We're in the business of exchanging relationships. We're in the business of integration. And we're in the business of harmonizing our inputs with the rest of the ecosystem. So in terms of what's going on today, you would be a fool to try and predict anything. I mean, the world is profoundly unpredictable. You know, we've all been so beaten up and, you know, frankly angry about what's happened in the last 3 years. I mean, we did everything right, didn't we? We went to college, we worked hard, we got promoted, we started putting money away, some of us, you know, and a lot of us feel incredibly let down. $8 trillion was the overinflated housing market in the States. That's how much we thought we had in our houses, but we didn't. $8 trillion. Do you know how much that is? I don't know how much $8 trillion is. So I did some research. I went to the CIA's website, and I found out that the GDP of the States is 15.4 trillion. So more than half of our GDP was a mirage. It wasn't there. It's going to take us 10 years to climb out of this. You know, the new dark ages, where a lot of us frankly distrust authority. You know, the whole Eurozone crisis has still got to play out. We don't really know what the outcome of that's going to be. A lifetime of debt. We are generation debt. By the time you pay off your college loans, then you've got to worry about a mortgage, then you've got to start topping up your pension. You're going to be spending your entire life paying for something which you don't actually hold. You'll never hold. So not surprisingly, we are the most depressed, the most anxious, the most drug-reliant, the most alcoholic-consuming generation that's ever existed. To top it off, you know, the world's a very insecure place. Terrorism, regional conflict. It will get better, the presentation. And frankly, we're kind of taxed off. You know, we're pissed off. Why should we're going to be spending 10 years paying back the governments for then paying off Wall Street. I mean, it's crazy. And then you've got these acute inequalities. You know, I mean, I watch, what do I watch? It's Selling New York. You know, these 3 guys that sell properties. And I feel like a complete bloody loser after I've watched it. So then I have to watch Hoarders. That brings me down to earth again. And I feel life isn't so bad, you know. We're the first generation to worship ourselves. You know, I'm not religious, but you can monitor the rise of depression and the collapse of faith. And in the words of the philosopher Alan de Botton, sustainability is a new spiritualism. You know, that's a new religion for us. We're seeking a metaphysical reassurance from something outside of the daily humdrum. You know, I mean, this was Madrid last Thursday. It was crazy. So a 10-year hangover. There's 25 million seeking full-time work. 46 million Americans are living below the poverty line, and the new jobs are generally low skill, low wage, short term. It's depressing. It's not, you know, it's not good. Decline of mass markets, and all of the institutions that we grew up with are being eroded. You know, the concept of family is being redefined. The concept of the church is being redefined. The banking systems, the way that we facilitate global trade, all of those pillars of society, all of the things that modernity was supposed to deliver happiness. You know, modernity was supposed to deliver happiness to us. It hasn't actually done it. Even Maslow's hierarchy is starting to be questioned now. This is one of the few kind of psychological marketing charts that I often use. It's still relevant, and most of you, I'm sure, are aware of it, but the basic principles are, as a society develops and an individual within that society develops, the needs that you place upon that society changes. So, you know, you need to be healthy, and then if you've got 2 arms and 2 legs and you can function, then you need to feel safe and secure. You need a roof over your head, and then you need a sense of belonging. You need to have a good job, friends, relationship, family, and then you need self-esteem. I'm doing quite well, thank you very much. I've just been promoted. And then when you've got all that, where do you go? You kind of find yourself, don't you? Self-actualization is what Maslow called that. A lot of us are up here. A lot of us are very successful. You know, we're young, we're healthy, we're well-educated. Prospects are looking good for us, even though they're doom and gloom. But the problem is a lot of the basics are being eroded. So we're all dreaming of plasma screens, cashmere throws, beach houses, dog collars that cost $300. But a lot of the basics are being eroded. 401ks, you know, healthcare, safety, environment. So I then plotted that against brand. The same thing's happening in brand. AT&T tells you every single day to rethink possible, but they've got the worst cell phone cover. I've got to be careful what I say. Allegedly, they have one of the most undesirable coverages in the States, and they've got terrible customer service ratings, allegedly. But they're telling me to rethink the possible. So don't dare to promise the thrills until you get the basics right. But the good thing is, something's happening. So there's a new sense of, what have we got to lose? There's a new entrepreneurial instinct, which is being led by naivety and passion, and frankly fear, which is going to redefine, I think, the economy over the next 10, even 20 years. There's a new series of values that we're clinging to. We want to work in a good workplace. We want a democratic and open environment. We want a non-hierarchical environment. We want to work on products and services that are meaningful and add value. And it's going to be us that are going to be driving it forward. It's us. It's our moment. Now's our moment to do whatever we want to do, because there are no rules. Because there's no such thing as a job for life. Never, ever rely on an employer, ever. Your personal life will always pick up your professional life, but your professional life will never support your personal life. Not to say there aren't some fantastic companies, but put yourself first. Because you've got no choice. We've got no choice. You have to accept personal responsibility now. So less is more. We're comfortable with having fewer products but better products. We're very comfortable with living as opposed to having a lifestyle. I was one of those horrid marketeers 10 years ago who said, we do lifestyle branding. British Airways is about a lifestyle brand. We need to create a lifestyle brand in the air. And that was relevant for the time, but it's more about what really matters now. I think we're moving away from extrinsic values to intrinsic values. We need to understand what meaning is for us. And, these are huge themes that I think are relevant for where we're heading today. Because we've got this informed, aware, savvy, marketing literate, cynical consumer who are attracted by the big ideas, but they have an attention for detail.